if I remember right, him leaving the plate in the home theater room. And it was probably a plate that he probably had some kind of dessert, key lime pie on. So he would occasionally leave a Mountain Dew can or a plate in the home theater, and her being, I mean, she cleaned a lot. She liked to keep a clean house. So stuff like that.
So how mad was she when she did this?
Like I said, she came out yelling and cussing and threw it as hard as she could up against the wall, and it shattered into several pieces.
And you were certain she was talking about your dad?
Oh, yes.
She ever say anything like that any other time? That you witnessed?
That I witnessed? No, I don't really remember, no. I mean, she always, talked bad about my dad. It's like she always tried to brainwash us, like he was, such a horrible person. But no, other than that, I never heard her really ever saying, I can't wait for the day he's dead.
I'm going to ask you some questions. We're going to get into the third, fourth, and fifth. This is, just to refresh me, this is Riley One's calendar, it's July 2018. So third, fourth, and fifth, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up to those dates, do you know whether or not your mom, the defendant, was upset about a trip that Chris would use some money, your dad's money, to rent a condo or something for a beach trip?
I do remember, so they all planned to go down to the beach. I remember her making comments to me that, she wasn't happy about it.
Did she ever complain to you about Chris's spending or using money?
I took everything with a grain of salt from that she said about money.
Did she talk about money often?
What do you mean to talk about,
People using money or spending money or things like that.
She always tried to say, Chris is stealing money, or, your father's paying for this and that and this.
She'd tell you to get a job or anything like that?
Whenever she would get pissed off about something. But then, an hour later, she'd be like, oh, let's go and do this.
Did she ever say anything or do anything because around July 3rd, July 4th, with Chris and the money he was spending to go on the beach trip, did you ever see her say or take any actions because of that, or confront your father or anybody else because of it?
I didn't see anything. I know she wasn't happy about it because, I don't really remember exactly why she was not happy about it. I remember her asking if I was going, and I remember my dad asking me if I wanted to go, and I said no, because, somebody's got to stay here and take care of the animals.
Was your dad going to go?
Yes, he was planning on going.
How about your mom?
No, she was not. And the reason why I said I didn't want to go is I said to him, I was like, well, somebody's got to take care of the animals because I'm sure she's going to run off and go to Tennessee.
Up to this point, you said your mom would kind of just disappear or during the week. How often would that occur? If you took it week by week, how often was that happening?
For quite a period of time, it was just at least once a week she would disappear. It always seemed like a Tuesday or Wednesday or somewhere, in the middle of the week, it seemed like. And then a lot of times she would just send me a text saying, hey, I got to go up to Martha James. I got to take her to the doctor. And she wouldn't be back until the following week. Or
how consistent was this where she would go week per week?
For a while, for the last year and a half.
Up to the week of July 3rd, 4th, and 5th. When was the last time you remember her just leaving?
I mean, that probably would have been the week before, maybe.
So it was up to the week before?
Oh, yeah. I mean, she was always had an excuse to go. Martha Jane had to go to this doctor.
And she would be gone. Would she just take day trips or the other?
Sometimes it will be a day or two. Sometimes she would be gone, 4 or 5 days.
Around this time, did you ever see your mom with more than one cell phone?
Oh, yes.
Tell the jury about that, please.
I noticed that she had 2 cell phones when she'll be on the phone talking, and I walk into the house and her cell phone is laying on the counter. And then a lot of times I kept, I'll walk around the corner and she would grab her phone and tuck it into her waistband. So I knew she had 2 cell phones. And I told my dad she had 2 cell phones.
Did she use the phones out and open, or where was she using
No,
them?
she tried to hide it from me. I do know that.
Did you ever see her on it?
Well, like I said, that one time I saw her on the phone, but yet I walk in and her phone's laying on the kitchen island.
Did she ever, where would she keep that other phone?
I have no clue.
Did you ever see her on her person or anywhere on her body?
Like I said, there was many occasions where I walk, into a room or around the corner, and she would move swiftly and tuck it into her pocket or waistband, depending on what she was wearing.
On July 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I want to go through that on July. I think July 2nd, which is was that Monday. Did you go play golf that day?
Second, no.
Do you remember if you went and played golf and then with your friend and then went into a restaurant afterwards? Were you playing golf that week? It was one.
I played a lot of golf during that time because Hampton Hall, it was fairly cheap to play. There was only 20-something bucks, I believe it was, to play Twilight golf. So we played a lot of golf.
Let's go to July 3rd, that Tuesday. Did you work at the house that day with your mom?
Yes, so the morning of the July 3rd, it was either the day before or 2 days before, we went to Scottsdale Farms and bought some bushes to plant on the back side of the house, so the opposite side of the pond, some holly bushes.
So this is the day before July 4th. Did y'all go to Cherokee Ranch restaurant for lunch?
We always went there.
All right, who did you go with?
It would depend. If my dad was home, him and I would go. If he was at the office,
Well,
Melody.
on July 3rd, did you go with your mom?
So on the morning of July 3rd, yeah, I went over there with, we drove separate because I was leaving from there to go up to the lake house with all my friends.
And did you see your dad at Cherokee Ranch?
Yes, I did.
But y'all weren't together?
No, he was already there when I came in, and he was sitting, as soon as you walked in the door, there was a booth, only a one-sided booth, so only either one person or 2 people could sit there, and that's where he sat. So, I ended up sitting at a different table.
Did he walk out without talking to y'all?
I ended up, he was still there when I left.
You don't know whether or not your dad walked out or paid and left before you and Melody?
If I remember right, no, he was still there when I left. Because I left, I drove up there separate from Melody. She was in her car, I was in the truck, and they both knew I was going up to the lake house.
And then what did y'all do after that?
So we ate, and I left, and I went to the lake house.
Where did she go?
I have no clue.
Whose lake house did you go to?
Nancy Pierce, it was her lake house, which is basically my second family. I've been friends with them for over 10 years now.
What time did you go up to the lake?
It would have been, around 12, 1 o'clock time frame, lunchtime.
And how long were you there at the lake on talking about July 3rd now?
I left there, and I was there until she called me and asked when I was coming home, and I said, well, I haven't really decided yet, but wow, what's going on? And she said, well, the horses are out. I go, what do you mean the horses are out? She's like, your daddy left the gate open and they're out. And I was like, well, I guess I'll, be on my way as soon as I can. And that was, I want to say, somewhere around 10 o'clock-ish.
I said around 10:52 p.m. Would that be about right?
It could have been around that time. I know it was dark out.
So did she call you or you called her?
She called me.
And she called and what? She was talking about the horses being out?
She called me and asked, when are you going to be home? And I said, well, I haven't, I haven't really decided, but wow, what's going on?
And what did she say?
She said, the horses are out. You need to come home and get them up.
On July 3rd, you're at the house with your mom working, go to lunch, your dad's at the restaurant, but you don't remember whether or not he left or anything like that.
I'm like 99% sure my dad was still sitting there.
But whenever y'all departed, he was in a separate car, you were in a separate car, and your mom was in a separate car?
Yes, that is correct.
And you went from the restaurant to the lake?
Yes, sir.
And you were there all night until you came home?
Until she called me and said,
Go
come
anywhere
home.
else?
No, sir.
And
we went out on the lake on the boat and did that, but I went to the lake house.
About 10:52, you said you got a call from your mom about the horses. Did she ask you to come home or anything?
She asked, when are you coming home?
She asked when you're coming home.
Yes.
All right, that call's around 10:52 p.m. And you talked to law enforcement after all this happened, told them your timeline, things like that, right?
Yes.
And I think they were able to take photographs of your phone. Did you show your time calls and things to the law enforcement? Do you remember?
I remember I gave them my phone.
Okay. And then about 11:34 p.m. or so, did you get back to your house?
Yeah, it was from the lake house, which is up in Dawsonville, to the farm. That was about, anywhere from 35-minute to 45-minute drive.
And we got back at, say, around 11:34 p.m. Did you talk to your mom?
So I came in and, I turned up towards the barn. And once I came onto the property, I see the horses in the pasture. And I pull in and I pull up and I see the fire burning up behind the house where the burn pile always was. So I go, I pull up there to the barn. I try calling her, Melody, and she did not answer. So I went around and checked on all the other animals, make sure the chicken coop was, the door was shut and, the goats were good and everything. And I went upstairs to my apartment, and then she finally called me back. And when she called me back, I said, what the hell? I thought you said the horses were out. And she's like, well, I put them up. I was able to get them and put them up.
Do you remember saying anything to her about your dad deciding to burn the fire or anything like that?
Yeah, so, after, she told me she put them up, I said to her, so I guess Daddy decided to burn that pile of wood, the burn pile? And she was like, yeah. I go, well, somebody needs to pay attention to it throughout the night so it doesn't spread. And then I said, I'm waking up very early in the morning to go play golf, and I'm going to come over and get the debit card to get some cash out. And
so
she's like,
if you talked to your mom around 11:34 p.m. on the phone, what time did you go to bed?
It was pretty shortly after that because I was pretty exhausted from being out in the sun all day.
All right, the next morning, July 4th. What time did you go and get the ATM card from your mom?
Very early in the morning. Because I want to say we either had a 7:30 or 8:30 tea time. So, the sun just rose by the time I got over there.
Did you go up to the house?
Yes, I drove over to the house.
Did you call your mom to come to the door? How'd you get her to the door?
So, the night before, I told her I was going to play golf, and in the morning I was going to come over and get the debit card. And she said, well, just call me and let me know when you come over. And I was like, okay.
Did you ask her to leave the doors open, unlocked or anything?
No, because the house wasn't never really locked up.
You know if she said anything about she was going to lock the doors or not lock the doors?
I do not remember anything of that.
Fair enough. When you was about, do you know if it was about 6:15 or so when you went to go get the ATM?
Yes, it was very, like I said, very early in the morning. So it had to been around that time. And I sent, you know, I called her as I'm getting in the truck and say, hey, I'm coming over. And she met me at the front door and handed me the debit card. And
Did you go inside?
No, I never went inside.
Did you go get something out of the refrigerator, a drink or anything?
No, I literally walked.
You didn't go get a power drink or energy drink or anything like that?
No, I did not.
Did she let you in?
I never went into the house. She literally met me at the front door and handed me the debit card.
Did you run down the road, get some cash, and come back?
Yeah, I ran down to, you know, right there at Free Home, Publix. There's a Wells Fargo bank right there. So I grabbed.
If your tea time was around 7 or 7:30, would that be fair to say?
Yes, and like I said earlier, it was either 7:30 or 8:30 tea time.
And who were you playing golf with?
I was playing with my friends Ted and Philip.
Would y'all do this on the 4th of July? Is this something y'all would do?
We try to make it a tradition, but yes, this would have been our second 4th of July round of golf.
And after you played golf, did you go somewhere?
We left from the golf course and went back to the lake house.
And how long were you at the lake?
So we finished golf and then we went there, and we only went out on the boat only for a few hours. I know we were back.
Did you go to a pool party afterwards?
So we got back and Ted and I went to our friend's apartment complex. She lived in Cumming, and we went to the pool party that she was having there. And I stayed there not long. I'd probably say like a couple hours.
And about what time did you go home that night?
I was home before it got dark. So it was.
Did you go home to feed the animals?
Yes.
All right. So on July 4th, start off, get the ATM money, go play golf, go to the lake, pool, and then you go home around whatever time before dark. Do you remember what time that would have been?
That, like I said, it probably would have been 6, 7 o'clock roughly. It was still daylight outside. And that time of the year, the sun would have gone down about 9-ish.
When you got home, did you have a conversation with your mom about the goats being out or anything?
So when I get home, I see all the goats out in the front pasture, or the pond pasture is what we called it. I get them, I grab their feed and I call them and they all come running. I take care of everybody. Then I ride over to the house. By this time, it's already dark out. I ride over to the house and, you know, I walk in and I go back to the master bedroom and Melody is laying in bed with the dogs. And I talk to her and I'm like, what the hell was it? Why are the goats out? And she's like, well, your daddy let them out. I was like, okay, well, why didn't...
That's what she said?
Yeah. She said, your daddy let them out. I was like, okay, well, why didn't y'all put them back up? I was like, you're going to have to, you know, start my new career at some point. So you're going to have to learn how to take care of these animals. And then I proceeded to, I turned around and, I mean, maybe talked about something else, I can't remember, but I do remember her telling her that. And I turned right around and went right back out and got in my truck and went back up to my apartment.
All right. On July 3rd, did you see the fire burning?
Yes, I did. When I came home that night, when I pulled up to the barn, I could see off behind the house that the fire was burning.
On July 4th, did you see the fire burning?
I do not remember it burning.
Judge, may we approach real quickly? It was back up July 5th.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break for the evening again. Don't look up anything about All right, go ahead.
Thank you, our police court, counsel. Scott, remind you,